Good morning. So for this video or for this lesson, we are going to talk about worded problems or situational problems, real life problems involving circles. Okay, to be able to answer this problem, which is specifically how high is the tunnel the edge of each lane. So we should draw, okay, what should the lane and the semicircular tunnel look like. So if we have a lane here, so this is 10 feet. Then since it the street is a two-lane street, so we have again another 10 feet here. And of course, that is a street, dapat magkadugtong sila, tama? Yan, two-way lane or two-way street. Then, it goes through a semicircular tunnel with a radius of 12 feet. Ibig sabihin, there is a tunnel which should look like this. Okay, maybe you are asking, bakit po yung tunnel medyo malayo dun sa street? Because the radius is 12 feet. Okay? If yung tunnel magsisimula dun sa dulo ng street, if the tunnel would start or the arc of the tunnel would start on the edge or edges of the street, it should look like this. Okay? Partially. Then, the radius of the semicircular tunnel would not be equal to 10 feet or to 12 feet because it's on the street or the lanes is only 10 feet wide. Thus, the radius of the semicircular tunnel, if it passes through the edges of the street, would only be 10 feet. However, the problem states that the radius of the semicircular tunnel is 12 feet. Therefore, may sobra. Okay? There should be a clearance or a clearing. There should be an allowance between the lane, the edges of the lane, or where the lane ends, and the beginning of the tunnel. And that is actually the point, or that is actually what we are looking for. How high is the tunnel, which is here, if I define a point P, which is exactly nasa tapat ng lane, or which is exactly opposite the ends of the 10 feet lane. Okay. What we are looking for is how high is this. This is what we are trying to solve. So how are we going to answer this question? Because it is a semicircular tunnel, it is half a circle, we can express the tunnel as an equation in Cartesian plane. That is, we are going to plot the semicircular tunnel together with the two lanes in a Cartesian plane. So I'm going to proceed with the empty slide. So suppose I have here the x and y axis. For simplicity, I would draw the center of the lane to be our origin, to be at the origin. So the street, the two, yan, the 10 feet lanes would have coordinates, or the edges of the lanes would have coordinates negative 10, 0, and 10, 0, right? And because the radius of the semicircular tunnel is 12 feet, therefore, the beginning of the coordinates of the endpoints of the semicircular tunnel would also be negative 12 and 12 along the x-axis. And along the y-axis, it would be positive 12. Okay? Wala na tayong coordinate sa baba because it is a semicircular tunnel. So, wala nang drawing sa baba. kalahati lang ng circle because it is a semicircular arc. So again, I'm sorry for the drawing. Meron tong drawing eh, ewan ko bakit nawala. Then, what we are required to solve is this point. Obviously, if we define this point, P, it has an x-coordinate of 10. Of course, because we plotted the edges of the 10-foot lane to be 10 and negative 10, and the height would be y, right? So that is the unknown, y. And on the other side of the lane, also it is, maybe I'll call that P2. This is P1. The x-coordinate is negative 10, and they are the same level, so the y-coordinate is y. Okay, how are we going to solve this? Because this is a semicircular tunnel, or this is a semicircular figure in a Cartesian plane. Kapag binuo natin yung circle, right, the equation would become x squared plus y squared equals r squared, which is the standard equation of a circle for what? Circles with center at the origin, right? X squared plus y squared equals r squared. And because the radius of this semicircular tunnel is 12 feet, right? R equals 12, then our equation would become x squared plus y squared equals 12 squared, which is equal to x squared plus y squared equals 144. And notice na yung hinahanap nating y, which is the height of the tunnel, actually, okay, height of the tunnel at the ends of the lane actually passes through the circle. If it passes through the circle, ibig sabihin nun, that only means that it will satisfy this equation. The point P1 and P2 should satisfy this equation. X squared plus y squared equals 144. That means I can substitute the coordinates of P1 and P2 to x and y here in this equation. Thus, for P1, the x value or the x coordinate is 10, and y, of course, is the unknown. Therefore, x squared plus y squared equals 144. Substituting x equals 10, because P1 has a x coordinate of 10, that would become 10 squared plus y squared equals 144. Okay, transposing, we get 144, and 10 squared is 100, so that is minus 100. So y squared would become 44. We take the square root on both sides, and we get that the y value is equal to the positive negative of 2 square root of 11. Because this is equal to square root of 4 times 11, and square root of 4 is 2. 11 is not a perfect square, so it remains under the square root. So, dalawa yung magiging value natin because we have two ends of the lane. We have, actually, binuo kasi natin yung circle. We completed the circle. So, that is why, of course, there would be two values, which is the positive, negative. However, our semicircular arc, okay, it means semicircular half only. So, we would only consider the positive side. So, we would neglect the negative. So, our answer would only become y equals 2 square root of 11. Okay? And that is actually the height of the tunnel at the edges of the two lines. So, ang sagot po natin is y equals 2 square root of 11. And the units is in feet. So, this is actually the answer. And this is also equal with 0.2. Ito rin po yung edge dun sa kabila or yung height nung lane dun po sa kabila kasi symmetrical naman sila and parehas po sila na nasa 10. Okay, pag sinubstitute natin yung x equals negative 10 here, we would get the same result. So the final answer is y equals 2 square root of 11 feet. Okay, if you do not have any questions, let's proceed to example number 2. Okay, so for example number 2, we have a piece of broken plate was dug up in an archaeological site. It was put on top of a grid. So nilagay siya sa Cartesian plane and nakita na the arc passes through the points A, negative 7, 0, which is shown in the figure, B1, 4, and C7, 2. We are tasked to find the center and the standard equation of the circle, describing the boundary of the plate. So what that means is, if, for example, yung plate, yung plato is binuong circle, ang tinatanong is, nasaan yung center niya and the standard equation. Kasi broken plate lang to. Okay, it is only a broken plate and we are only given these points which are in the edges or along the circle A, B, and C. So how are we going to do that? Okay. To solve this, we have to recall some properties of the circle. Okay. A, B, C is along the circle. Okay, nasa circumference siya ng circle. And if we connect A and B, so we will generate a chord, right? So meron tayong chord AB, ito. So what is a chord? A chord is a line that intersects the circle. Big sabihin, a line formed by joining 2 points in the circle. So AB here, since A and B are in the circle, then AB would form a chord. And also BC would also form a chord, right? And dun sa geometry natin, if we recall, if we create a perpendicular bisector, okay, if we bisect this chord or any chord of a circle, the perpendicular bisector of any chord of a circle passes through the center actually. So kapag hinatin natin yung chord na AB, any chord ng circle, pag hinatin
So,
natin,
how do you know that is the center?
because that is the property of a circle. Okay, any chord, okay, the perpendicular bisector of any chord passes through the center. Of any chord of a circle passes through the center. That is a property of a circle.
But how do you know the center is 1, -6?
Okay, I haven't said that it is 1, -6. We are going to solve it, okay? I'm just trying to state the property first that will help us solve the problem. Okay, from there, since we said, okay, one property of the circle is the perpendicular bisector of any chord of a circle passes through the center. Then we can generate two perpendicular bisectors here. We have one perpendicular bisector of the chord AB, so let's name that L1, and then the perpendicular bisector of chord BC, okay, which passes through the points M and N as shown. So let's call that line 2. Since it is a perpendicular bisector, M is actually the midpoint of AB, right? And N is also the midpoint of BC. Okay, to be able to solve this, okay, since both perpendicular bisectors passes through the center, then my aim is to find the equations of line, okay, the equations of the perpendicular bisector, and get their intersection because they intersect at the center, right? So my first aim is to find the equations of the line, which are the perpendicular bisectors of AB and BC. Okay. And to be able to do that, I will use AB. Since AB or since L1 is a perpendicular bisector of AB, what can we say about their slopes? The slopes of two perpendicular lines. The slopes of two perpendicular lines are negative reciprocal, right? So if L1 or AB is perpendicular to L1, then the slope of AB should be the negative reciprocal of the slope of L1. Also, the slope of BC should be the negative reciprocal of the slope of ML2. Okay. If we find the slope of MAB, we're going to use these 2 points. Point A, the coordinates of point A is negative 7, 0. The coordinates of point B is 1, 4. The coordinates of point C is 7, 2. Okay. Finding the slope of line or the chord AB, we get, ang formula po natin ng slope is y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. So let B our y2, x2, y2, and letter A or point A be x1, y1. So we have 4 minus 0 divided by, okay, I'll write this. We let, yan, the coordinates. Then x2 minus x1 would become 1 minus negative 7. So that is 4. 1 plus 7 is 8. So the slope of MAB is 1/2. And therefore, the slope of perpendicular bisector L1 would be equal to the negative reciprocal of MAB, which is equal to the negative of 1 all over 1/2 or negative 2. The same process for the slope of L2, which is the perpendicular bisector of chord BC. First, we are going to get the slope of BC. So this time, I'll erase this. This time, our x1, y1 would be.
So can you tell me how did you get -2 from -1?
So moving on, for the slope of chord BC, we get again y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. But this time, our x1, y1 would be point B and our x2, y2 would be point C. Therefore, we have y2 is 2 minus y1 is 4, and then x2 is 7 and x1 is 1. So this will give us 2 minus 4 is negative 2 all over 6, or that is negative 1/3. Then we can now proceed and get the slope of the perpendicular bisector, which is L2. That is the negative reciprocal of 1/3. So reciprocate first 1/3, and that would give us 3 all over 1 or 3. Then you multiply it by negative 1, but since there is already a negative sign, negative 1/3, so that is negative times negative. It will give us a positive 3 answer. So this is the slope of L2. So let's take note of these values. the slope of L1 is, or the first perpendicular bisector is -2, and the slope of the second perpendicular bisector or bisector of BC is 3. Okay, this is L1, and the slope is -2, and the slope of line 2 or the second perpendicular bisector is +3. Okay, I already have the slope of these two perpendicular bisectors. Remember, my aim is to find the equation of these two perpendicular bisectors or two lines. There are many ways to determine the equation of a line, and one way is what we call the point slope form. That is, you can determine the equation of a line if you have the slope of the line and a point where the line passes, or any point in the line. Okay, we already have the slopes of the two lines here. We have -2 and 3, right? And we know that the perpendicular bisector of AB, which is L1, passes through M, which is the midpoint. Since it is a bisector, it means it bisects AB. It divides chord AB into two equal segments, and that is, it passes through the midpoint. So the midpoint M and the midpoint N is the point we need in the point slope form to determine the equation of the line. So we have to determine points M and N, which are midpoints of the chords. And how are we going to do that? The midpoint formula. What is the midpoint formula? The midpoint formula states that, okay, the x-coordinate of the midpoint is equal to x1 plus x2 over 2, and the y-coordinate is y1 plus. It is just the average. Okay, for chord AP, where A is -70 and B is 1, 4, the midpoint is, or the point M for midpoint is equal to x1 plus x2 all over 2, which is equal to -7 plus 1 all over 2. -7 plus 1 is -6 all over 2. That is -3. The y-coordinate of point M, y1 plus y2 all over 2. That is actually equal to y1, 0, y2, 4. Okay, ito yung x1, y1 ko, and x2, y2. Divided by 2, that is 0 plus 4 is 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Therefore, the coordinates of point M is -3, 2, which is clearly shown in the graph. We can use the same process, the same midpoint formula for the midpoint of BC or for point N. Okay, but I'm going to leave that to you. Okay, but the point N has a coordinate of 4, 3. So we already have the slopes of the perpendicular bisectors, and we also have the midpoint where these perpendicular bisectors pass through. So we have -3, 2 for line 1 or perpendicular bisector 1, and for line 2, L2, we have 4, 3. So we are now ready, because the requirement for the point slope formula To find the equation of the lines or the equation of the perpendicular bisectors have already met. Negative 3, 2. Okay, let's now proceed to finding the equations of the line. So again, this is L1 and this is L2. For L1, we use again the point slope form. The slope of L1 is negative 2 and the slope of L2 is positive 3. And ML1 or the line 1 passes through the midpoint of AB, which is negative 3, 2, and ML2 passes through the point 4, 3, or the midpoint of BC, which is M. So for line 1, we use point M. So we have y minus 2 equals the slope of line 1 is negative 2. So negative 2 times x minus, then we have negative 3. So that would become negative, negative, positive 3. Rearranging, we have y equals, simplifying first, y minus 2 equals, distribute negative 2, we get negative 2x, negative 2 times positive 3, that is negative 6. So we get y equals negative 2x minus 6 transpose negative 2, we get positive 2. Then y equals negative 2x minus 4. This is the equation of line 1. For line 2, we use the same process. We use the point slope form or point slope formula. So y minus, for line 2, it passes through 4, 3. So y1 is 3. And the slope of line 2 is 3, positive 3, times x minus 4. Simplify, we get 3x minus 3 times 4 is 12. Transpose negative 3, that would become 3x minus 3, minus 12 plus 3. And we have y equals 3x minus 9. This is equation of L1, L2. Okay, we now have the equations of the two perpendicular bisectors. And since these two perpendicular bisectors of chords AB and BC respectively passes through the center, we are going to what? Find the intersection. Okay, and how are we going to do that? We use the two equations. So we have y minus 2x, y equals negative 2x. For equation number 1, y equals negative 2x minus 4. And for line 2, we have y equals 3x minus 9. To find the equation, so to find the intersection, there are many ways. But what I'm going to do is subtract na lang. Subtract these two equations. So let's subtract. The right side or the left side, y minus y is 0 equals negative 2x minus 3x is negative 5x. Negative 4 minus negative 9, that is positive 5. So we have 0 equals negative 5x plus 5. Let's transpose negative 5x, then we have positive 5x equals 5. Let's divide by 5, let's divide by 5. Then we get x equals 1. This is the x coordinate of the center. To find the y coordinate, you simply substitute the x value for the two equations. Okay, either of the two equations. So let's try for L1, y equals negative 2x minus 4. Since x equals 1, we get y equals negative 2 times 1 minus 4. That is y equals negative 2 minus 4, which is equal to negative 6. You can also do this for equation 2. If you substitute here x equals 1, you get 3 times 1 minus 9, or 3 minus 9, you get negative 6. So the y coordinate of the center is negative 6. Thus, the center of the circle is negative, or 1, negative 6. Center C is, I know, gamit na pala yung center C. Center O has the coordinates of 1, negative 6. Any questions? To get the standard equation of the circle, since we only have the center, we we'll still have to look for the radius of the circle. And this is pretty straightforward na kasi you already have the center, which is 1, negative 6. And since A, B, and C is within the circle, then the distance from point O, the center, to any points between A, B, and C is actually a radius. Okay, A OA is a radius because it is the center, or it is from the center to the circle. OB is also a radius. OC is also a radius. So you have three choices, or three options on how to determine the radius of the circle. So I will choose point A. So solving for, dito na lang po sa baba ha. Solving for OA, I would get the distance from point O to point A. That is the radius. Distance formula is square root ng x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So sabihin na natin yung point 1 natin is O and point 2 natin is A. Therefore, x2 is 1 minus negative 7. So that is what would become 1 plus 7 squared plus y2 is negative 6. y1 is 0. So negative 6 minus 0. Tama ba? Ang point natin is 1, negative 6. And point A is negative 7, 0. So 1 minus negative 7 and negative 6 minus 0. Okay. The radius is equal to 1 plus 7 is 8 squared. My squared. Negative 6 squared. So that is equal to 64 plus 36, which is equal to the square root of 100, or the radius is actually, the radius is of the circle is actually 10. So our center is point O, which has coordinates 1, negative 6, and the radius is 10. Therefore, the standard equation of the circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, where hk is the coordinate of the center and r is the radius of the circle. So, substitute na lang tayo. X minus 1, so this is hk squared plus y minus, since that is negative 6, diretsahin ko na, we have positive 6 squared, and we have r squared is 10 squared, or x minus 1 squared plus y plus 6 squared equals 100. That's it.